Welcome to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show, a real estate investment program. Listen and learn how to use real estate to build wealth and passive income streams for you and your family. We bring you experts every day to discuss and answer your questions on everything from single-family homes all the way up to 600-plus unit apartment complexes. And now, the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the show. This is Andy Webb with Lifestyles Unlimited, and as always, we're working on your financial freedom. Hey, and first and foremost, a happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. We already had a little bit of celebration this morning, did some yard work, planted some flowers, and put down the mulch. Looks great out there. And speaking of flowers, fellas, did you have to break the bank to get mom some flowers this year? Whether it's your wife, your kid's mom, or your mom, flower prices in the Metroplex, DFW, where I sit, and really across the country, they have spiked. They are up 20%. Now, they're saying this is a shortage due to COVID, like we've seen across the board now, but I think there's probably a little bit of general inflation under there as well. And that's what I want to talk about today. I've got 3 topics, and these are all interconnected. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about inflation. And we're going to talk about a crisis we're seeing in the nation, which is around affordable housing. I think those play together. And then we're going to talk about property taxes. That certainly plays into affordable housing. And I want to bust a couple of myths around protesting your property taxes, things you think, reasons why you think you should not do that, why you shouldn't file a protest. And I'm going to dispel those myths today. And I've been teasing this for the past couple of shows. We've done a little bit here and there on the topic of protesting those taxes. And in the second part of the show, the last 2 segments, we're going to get in a lot more depth today, because I do want you to take some tactics away that you can employ when you do go protest those taxes, and you should go protest those taxes. So again, inflation, affordable housing, property taxes, and protesting those. These are connected. And, some of what we're seeing here, it's policy driven, especially when I think about inflation. So, some things are COVID driven, like the shortage I mentioned around flowers. Some are going as far back and are tied to things like the 2008 housing crisis. And we're seeing the effects of actions taken back then that are manifesting themselves now. And we're going to take a look and see what's going on there. And I do want to give you the number here in the studio if you've got any questions on inflation. What's a good inflation hedge on protesting those property taxes? Oh, a favorite topic of mine. I do it every year. Give me a call. Number here is 855-497-4335. Again, 855-497-4335. If you're feeling shy, send me an email. I've got that open right here in front of me. It's askandy@luinc.com. And we're going to start with inflation, and I'm going to open with an article. Actually, this came into my mailbox just yesterday. This is a magazine. It's called Realtor Magazine. This is the May-June 2021 edition. Very first article I came across as I thumbed through this yesterday. It's titled, A Taste of the 1970s. Now, I was born in the 1970s. I can't say I remember the inflation we had back then, but this is a reference to that inflationary period. The subtitle says, Inflation and rising mortgage rates will add pressure to real estate markets, possibly downward pressure, although maybe inflation pushes up prices. We'll see which way that goes. This is penned by Lawrence Yun. He is the NAR, the National Association of Realtors chief economist, and he puts it very squarely here for us. Inflation is edging higher. Now, for you and for me, home buyers, investors that are buying properties, refinancing, as he puts it here, it does not bode well for interest rates. Now, he says the Consumer Price Index rose, the CPI rose 1.7% year over year as of February. Now, we're already about middle of May, start of May, so we're a couple months beyond that measurement. It sunk to zero. Inflation was zero during the pandemic. People weren't out buying anything, staying at home. And now it's picking up. The increase, he says, is driven by things like a higher price for used cars. utilities, pretty basic for our living, right? Meat, healthcare. And then he says, in addition, rental housing costs rose 1.5%. Now, this is a nationwide number that he's giving us. This will be regional and different from market to market. And he also says that February home prices rose 15% for the year. And that's not even in the CPI. That is not in that inflationary index at 1.7%. Now, he points out that the Federal Reserve, has said recently that they don't plan to raise interest rates until 2023, at least. So that's still a couple of years down the pike, but it does not matter. Mortgage rates are still going to climb. Why? Inflation, expectations around inflation. Now, going back to that title, A Taste of the 1970s, if you're my age, you don't remember. I was just born. I don't know what a diaper cost. I'm sure I was wearing those. Nowadays, I can tell you. And nowadays, I can tell you it's going up. Millennials, you didn't experience this, but you may get a taste now. Back then, in the 1970s, inflation on an annual basis averaged annually 7.1% with a peak at 11%, which was in 1979. That is also the same year that the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage rate peaked. So these are clearly tied together. Now, per the economist at the NAR, National Association of Realtors, what was the primary cause? I'm quoting him here, excessive printing of money. Like I said, some of what we're seeing right now is policy-driven, things that were taken by the prior administration, things that are being done now by the current administration. And as he says here as well, something similar is occurring now. Excessive printing of money. Is inflation a reality? Is it coming? The answer is yes. Now, if you know anything about the Federal Reserve, they have a couple of priorities. One of those is to keep unemployment at a minimum. They're working on that. And to keep inflation at or about maybe under 2%. 2% is their number. Lately, their goals have loosened. And he says here that inflation as high as 5% may be tolerated. And that's in the CPI, in that basket of goods that they measure for inflation, which, by the way, does not include home prices. Now, he goes on with a couple other interesting points. We're going to hit these when we come back from the break. We're going to talk about rents. What is the impact on rents? This is important for you if you are a rental owner. This also impacts that conversation around affordable housing. And this also ties to property taxes and those rates you may have seen this recent year. So stay tuned.
Warning, listening to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show will change your life. We will teach you how to create wealth and passive income so you can be financially free. And now, back to your host.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Andy Webb, and to all the moms out there, I have a quick message to you from my co-pilot.
Happy Mother's Day!
All right. Thank you, sir. He was insistent. I want to be on air. He knows what goes on here in the studio, and I was happy to accommodate him. It's been a great day so far. I hope you are having a great day with your family as well. We're going to get to the topic of inflation here. Again, if you have any questions, I want to throw out the number. It's 855-497-4335, or send me an email to askandy@luinc.com. Inflation, is it here? Yes. Absolutely. We're looking at an article here. Just came into my mailbox yesterday. This is the Realtor magazine and penned by the chief economist of the National Association of Realtors, Lawrence Yun. Hit a couple of points already in the prior segment, but he goes on to talk about the fact that higher mortgage rates are coming as well. Why? Well, lenders don't want to issue loans at low rates knowing that inflation is here, that it's around the corner, that it's going to go up. So that's going to push those mortgage rates up. For now, they're low. They're good. 3%. Maybe get a little less, maybe a little higher, but right around that point. So it's a good time to lock in that inflation hedge, which is rental real estate, with that 30-year fixed rate mortgage at 3%. Now, he goes on to say another component to monitor are housing rents as it relates to inflation. Before the pandemic, those were going up at about 3.8% annually. Again, this is a national statistic. That's across the nation. Some markets will have been higher. Some might have been lower. Some might have even been negative, like we're seeing now in New York City. But rental demand did soften as a result of the pandemic. I know I did not try to raise my rents. I wanted to keep everybody in place when we did our spring lease up last year. But now that we're getting back to the swing of things, jobs are coming back, vacancies are falling, and rents are increasing in May, he says, approach 4% in terms of rental growth. Now, I have an interesting statistic we're going to hit a little bit later in the show from Bloomberg that points to an even higher number. So, long story short, chief economist here at the NAR says inflation is here. If you look around the internet, just do a quick Google search, you're going to see a ton of articles. Groceries, this was in Bloomberg. The grocery price shock is coming to a store near you. Okay, we're seeing that in commodities already. Now, some of this may tie to shipping, right? We have logistics, backlogs in logistics. Just talking to my neighbor while we were outside earlier, and as part of the deep freeze, the deep winter storm problems that we had back in February, they have a pool pump broke. They've been working for a very long time to try to get a pool pump, but there's a shortage. 2 reasons. Builders are putting in more of those, it seems, right now. And, of course, everybody else, everywhere else in Texas, had their pool pump break. And on top of that, manufacturing delays. Talking to my AC guy the other day, we had to replace an air conditioner and didn't do it at rehab, so budgeted, knew it was coming, happy to replace it. And he said, let's get the order in now because they're seeing delays. Manufacturing, parts, logistics, now grocery prices. CNBC, consumer prices rise more than expected, pushed by 9.1% jump in gasoline. CAS, this is a good index for you to look at. CAS, it's CASS, CAS Freight Index. I believe I picked this up from one of the economists, Dr. Dotzauer, that comes and speaks each year at Lifestyles Unlimited and tells us what to expect for the coming year, what his thoughts are on the economy. Is it going up? Is it going down? Is it flat? And the CAS Freight Index is a good thing to look at because it looks at line haul rates. It looks at trucking. Are the prices up? Are the shipments up? Are they down? And volume is going up. Prices of freight going up. That's going to flow through, again, as part of inflation. Lumber. We've all heard about lumber. I saw an interesting infographic. Now, it has lumber being up 300 some odd percent. I've seen 180%. I guess it depends on who you talk to, but it is up. If you've done any kind of renovations lately, you know the cost of lumber is up. In 2020, May 4th, 2020, $50,000 worth of lumber, this is how they chose to present it, would accommodate building 10 and some change. Let's call it 10 single-family homes. May 5th of this year, 2021, you will be able to build 2. So clearly price inflation in materials there. And that's all going to flow through, like I said, to, among other things, housing and then rents, rental rates. And that takes me from inflation into a problem we have across our nation, which is affordable housing. And I find this an interesting topic. I think a lot of the members at Lifestyles Unlimited, they do their best to put good workforce housing onto the market. A lot of people out there, when they picture the rental owner in their mind, they picture this stereotype is that slumlord. And I have walked houses where people are living, and I've just been flabbergasted that owner, that slumlord, let it get to that level, and that those people tolerated it. But that goes back to the lack of affordable housing. Remember, our motto at Lifestyles Unlimited is best product, best price. So when we go and take that house that is dilapidated, that belonged to that slumlord, that's finally, glad to see him going out of the business. Well, we go in and we fix it up. We put the best product on the market. And we put it on the market at a good price, at the best price. And we get great residents as a result of that. And we help, I think, in this conversation around affordable housing. You know, I can remember, in fact, years ago, I have a family in one of my houses. They've been there for a couple of years now, gone through a couple of renewal cycles with me. And the first couple of months they were in there, I went down there. I did what I call a maintenance walkthrough. I just want to see how things are looking. Is there anything I can fix up? And the lady, she remarked to me, she said, Andy, nobody has ever taken this sort of interest in their property where they've rented before. She was elated. We are not slumlords. We have the best product. We offer that at the best price. We get the best people because of that. But there is a shortage of that type of workforce housing. And you can, again, just like I said, Google inflation. You'll find any number of articles. If you Google affordable housing crisis, I see any number. Gunnison, this is in Colorado, housing shortage leads to XYZ. Study finds increasing housing instability in Pioneer Valley. Flint, Michigan faces affordable housing shortages. Here's one fix for the affordable housing shortage. So there's clearly a problem out there. That goes back in part to 2008. What did builders do? Housing crisis. Housing tanked. They stopped building. When they resumed, what product did they build? Not affordable housing. They built that higher end stuff where they have higher margins. And as a result, today, we don't have enough inventory. And this is where we step in as good rental owners. Now, we have demands. We have pressure on us constantly as well. And that's the property tax. That's what we're going to get to next in today's conversation. But I want you to understand, inflation, it's out there. Real estate makes a great inflation hedge. You hear people talk about gold. Gold does not throw off cash flow like our rental properties do. Ooh, maybe a 60-40 portfolio of equities and bonds. That's a good inflation hedge. Forget about it. Doesn't throw off cash flow like our properties do. Bitcoin, maybe, I don't know. We're going to finish this conversation around inflation, affordable housing, and shift gears for the balance of the show to get you ready to go protest those taxes so you don't have to inflate prices. So stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. It's time to turn up the volume and fine-tune your passive income plan so you can create the lifestyle you've always wanted.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Andy Webb, and we've kind of got a mixed bag of topics today that are interrelated ultimately. We've talked already about inflation. It's here. Now, how big is it going to be? That's the question. Just heard on the commercial break, somebody hit one of our big pipelines, and that's been put on hold. Who knows what the impact on gas prices will be as a result of that, but we already saw that the CPI was up considerably as a result of 9.1% increases in gas. So more to come, I think, from that. And affordable housing, of course, well, we've seen that the rental rates have gone up and are going up, and there's just a lack of inventory. And we'll talk about that just a little bit more, and then I want to shift gears into protesting your property taxes because I think that ties back to that affordable housing as well. Now, if you have a question for me today, the number is 855-497-4335, or send me an email to askandy@luinc.com. And I have to comment just briefly in this context of affordable housing. I mentioned on last week's show we had put a house on the market. Family that was in there took jobs across town, too much of a commute, so they're moving. I get that, no problem. Kept the house very well. I said, let's get it listed, put it on the market a little after 8 o'clock on a Friday. We just got hammered with interest. And I relate this to you to explain how quickly things are moving. Now, I put this one on the market at $13.95. I don't know that that's affordable housing, but that's at the lower end of our portfolio. And again, we were just hammered by people looking showings, just constant showings over the course of a couple of days. By Monday or Tuesday, we had identified out of 8 or 9 applications we'd already received. We're going to start with these guys. Balance of the week was spent doing that due diligence, that screening that we always encourage that you do. Signed a lease yesterday. So this thing went very, very fast. People were offering to submit applications sight unseen, which I never like to do. I want you to go out and make sure you're going to be happy with the place so I don't hear about it a week after you move in. But boy, that was just fast. But that in part ties back to best product, best price. That best product was visible in the good marketing pictures that I put online. Again, 8, 9 applications or so, and we got the best people. Interestingly as well, here's where owning, some people say, the more properties you get, the more difficult it must be. Well, here's where owning multiple properties actually works into the picture. I've got another set of tenants that they bought a house. Their property is going to come available start of July. As I saw that, okay, I think we're going to wrap this one up, start letting people know, guess what? I know this one's not going to work out for you, but I have this one over here. A little bit higher rent. If that's in your budget, let's talk. So right now, the market, it's interesting. It is bearing, as we mentioned earlier, it is allowing rental increases. Now, again, the chief economist at the National Association of Realtors is expecting somewhere around 4%. Let's see what some of the bigger rental owners out there, landlords, are doing. Now, these are the industrial guys, American Homes for Rent. They own 54,000 houses. They increased rents 11%. on vacant properties, 11%. Now, those are vacant. In other words, that's not a renewal, much like I just, in essence, will have a vacancy for a very brief couple of days. Invitation Homes, that is the largest landlord in the industry, boosted rents by a similar amount. Let's see. They reported an occupancy rate of more than 98% during the first quarter of the year. Good news for us as rental owners. And much like American Homes for Rent, they took their vacant house rentals or rent rates up 10%, more than 10%. And here's the interesting part. If you're going through a renewal, they are targeting increases of as much as 8% for an existing resident that they're renewing. Does that point to a potential problem with affordable housing? Yes, it could. Now, one big reason, at least here in Texas, why we would want to take up our rental rates is to offset our property tax valuation increases, which drives our property taxes that we pay at the end of the year or the start of the year. And that's what we're seeing. Now, earlier in the day, I did a show at 9 a.m. I had a guest with me, Julian Ball from Ball Property Tax Services. The whole show was devoted to this topic of protesting your property taxes. We're going to go through some of what he and I talked about now. But if you want to catch that full show, go to lifestylesunlimited.com. Click on the radio tab, and you can hear all of the details there. But one of the things I want to do now is bust a couple of myths. I hear too commonly when I'm talking to newer investors, maybe just a homeowner. You don't do the whole rental thing. It's kind of scary to you. I get that. But you're just a homeowner, but you're afraid to protest your property taxes. The two common reasons that I hear. Number one, you think to yourself, okay, well, they set my value at, let's say, $140K. It's higher than I like. I'm homesteaded. It went up that 10%. I'm afraid. I'm afraid to go protest. What happens if I protest? Could they raise my value? Number one, if you are homesteaded, you can't go up more than 10% per year. What if you're that rental owner? They took you up 10%. I'm afraid to go protest because they might take me up even higher. Well, no, they cannot do that. Years ago, they could. Smaller, more rural areas might have done that, use that as a stick to keep you from coming in, but they changed the law. And Julian spoke to this in the earlier show. They cannot raise your value. It can only go down. Maybe it stays put, but it can only go down. It cannot go up. So that fear, that concern you have about getting out there and protesting those taxes, that your value may go up, don't worry about that. Get rid of that. Just dispel that myth. That's gone. Number one. Number two, common myth that I hear. If I lower my tax valuation, that value for my property that you can go out to the Denton County or Tarrant County or Bexar County or Harris County appraisal district and see, if I get that lowered from, let's say, 200 down to 150, and then I turn around and try to sell my house later in the year, that's going to impact my ability to sell the house at 200, 210, 220, and so on. There is no correlation. Lowering your tax value does not and will not hurt your sales price. Ultimately, what happens in a normal arm's length transaction, somebody's getting lending, they're going to have an appraisal done. That appraiser is going to go out and look at the sales comps. Sure, they might note what it is on the tax rolls, but they understand the game as well. So there's zero correlation there. So two myths gone. If you protest, they will not raise your value. Now, maybe next year, maybe the year after that, but not this year. Number two, if you lower your tax valuation, that will not hurt your sales price. So forget about that. Now, something else we spoke about in depth today is key dates, and these are very firm. Now, the state regulates or dictates when counties have to do certain things and what kind of deadlines and timelines they have. The state dictates the rules. The counties may apply this slightly differently. Their websites all look a little bit different. But fundamentally, the due date for you, rental property owner, business owner, multifamily owner, owner-occupant of your own house, the deadline for you to get that protest submitted is May 15th. Now, that's a Saturday this year, so it's going to fall to Monday, May 17th. If you try to do it on May 18th, it's not going to work. I drug my feet one year, and I was online. I do it online to get the ball rolling. I don't send it in by mail. I just do it all online. Something got hung up on their side. I took some screenshots at 11:59 on the evening of the 15th, and that saved me. They didn't want to allow me to protest because by the time it got processed, or whatever happened on their system side, don't know, system error, they wanted to reject me, had the screenshots. It apparently was a problem across the board in this particular county, but don't drag your feet too long. Time is of the essence, but you don't have to have all of your documentation. You don't have to have everything together when you submit that initial protest. What the general timeline looks like is as follows. In that May 15th, or in this year, May 17th deadline, there's one variation to that you may experience. If your county has not yet published that appraisal to you. They may be behind the ball for some reason, short-staffed, COVID's got them down, or in the case of Denton County, they're overhauling their IT system, so they're behind. Checked again today, still no information online. So eventually when they get that notice to you, you have 30 days from date of that notification. Okay, so those are your two timelines. So hold those dear, hold those close, because you don't want to miss that. It's very easy to go ahead and get that documentation, that initial request for protest in. Now, what happens next? Here's the key, and here's where we're going to get into the details about what you need to do, what's going to work this year, and what may not. So stay tuned. We'll get to that when we come back.
We're back with the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. We're here to answer your questions and help you become financially free.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Andy Webb. We are in our final segment. We're going to talk about some tactics when it comes to protesting those property tax valuations so that you can get your tax burden lowered. Whether you're a homeowner, just your homestead, your personal house, that is, or you're a rental owner with just a handful of houses, maybe just one, maybe 10, maybe 100. You want to try to get that burden down because guess what? That's going to keep more cash flow in your pocket. And if I tie this back to affordable housing, maybe you don't have to take the rent up quite so much to offset that tax increase. We have a shortage right now across the nation of affordable housing. Now, we're not doing this out of altruistic reasons, rather. I spent years living in Germany, and occasionally the odd German word will pop out, so stay tuned. You may catch a few more, but we do want to try to keep that tax burden down. That only helps us down the road every year. If you ask anybody out there that's been doing this for any period of time, should I protest every year? Yes, you absolutely should. You don't have anything to lose. Two common myths that if I lower my tax value when I go to sell my house, it's going to reduce the sales price. I get no correlation at all. Two totally different things. If I go and protest my value, I'm scared they might take it up. They're going to realize they set it too low. They can't do that. It can go down. It can't go up. We'll talk a little bit about the process as well. I do want to tell you just quickly about an event we've got coming up later this year in September. We have our Wealth and Passive Income Expo 2021. That's going to be here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I am so excited to get out to this. I had a blast last year. The year before that, always a ton of education, just like we're doing today. We're going to get into some education around the tactics for protesting those taxes. Education in spades, networking in spades. Last year we had 5,000 plus investors. This is the largest in-person gathering of real estate investors in the world. You want to be a part of that, and you can learn more if you'll go check out wealthandpassiveincomeexpo.com. Again, that's here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's going to be at the Irving Convention Center at Las Colinas, right smack dab in the middle. And that's going to be on Friday and Saturday, September 3rd and 4th. That is Labor Day weekend. So go check out wealthandpassiveincomeexpo.com. And if you use my name, Andy, A-N-D-Y, we've got a promo code or a promotion running. It's $97 off any pass or package. Essentially makes the general admission free. Just use promo code Andy, A-N-D-Y, all caps. Great event. And by then we'll have been well past protesting our taxes, I think. Although I did have a friend that just finished their 2020 tax protest last month. That one drug out. But that's what we're going to get to now. We talked about inflation in the earlier part of the show. If you want to catch any of the past segments, go to lifestylesunlimited.com. The shows are archived there. And it's interesting what we're seeing on at the county appraisal level in terms of our valuations. That is reflective of a degree of inflation. Now, home prices, they are up 15% year on year nationally. But that home price, that does not fall into that commonly quoted consumer price index, that CPI, which as of February was up 1.7%. Home price increases are not in that bucket. And that's flowing through, like I said, to affordable housing. Right now, it's interesting, vacancy is extremely low. At some of the largest corporate players out there, American Homes for Rent, Invitation Homes, we're seeing 98% occupancy, rather. Vacancy is so low. And as a result of that, that means that the market is bearing higher rents. So when the county appraisal district does take us up, we can pass those through in our rents potentially. That's an analysis you should be doing as you go through your lease renewals or as you have vacancies. American Homes for Rent took their vacant portfolio up 11% last month. Invitation Homes around a little over 10%. And they're targeting 8% for lease renewals for people that are staying in place. And again, one of the big, at least in Texas, we don't have an income tax as a state. So one of the places where our local jurisdictions go to get funding is through the property tax, and school district being the biggest piece of that. And sometimes that can be a burden. So we want to get out there as rental property owners, as homeowners, and try to keep that to a minimum. And let's talk about some of the tactics now that you want to employ. We talked about some key dates. May 17th is the deadline to file for most of the appraisal districts if they've already gotten you that notification. Notice or realize they only have to send you a notification if that value has gone up. Some of mine didn't go up. I did not get anything in the mail. Can you still protest those? You absolutely can. Should you? You absolutely should. I had a couple of properties actually go down for whatever reason. So there's something in the market, perhaps. Maybe they misestimated or misvalued those properties last year. Maybe you can get them down even lower. So definitely get out there and protest those. One other key date I do want to mention, if you were very adversely affected by the winter storms this past February, the governor did declare that a disaster. And as part of that, you can take an exemption. You can raise an exemption to your property taxes for the year. Even though it happened in 2021, normally the county appraisers, they're setting that value as of January 1, 2021, looking back at the year of 2020 in this case. Even though that winter storm was already well into 2021, you can get an exemption on your property for your taxes if you were heavily hit. It needs to be 15%. Impact to your property's value. And the deadline to file that exemption, you're going to want to talk with your appraisal district to get more information, but the deadline is May 28th. You have 105 days following the governor's declaration of disaster. We saw this a couple years ago with Hurricane Harvey as well. So deadline is to get your protest filed May 17th. What do? You file it. You can take that letter you got, check the couple of boxes, and you always want to check both. The first two, value is over market and value is unequal compared with other properties. Language will be something like that. Whether you argue on one or both of those options, that'll come later. But check those both so that you can. If you don't check both and you get to the ARB later down the road, they're going to limit you to the one that you checked. Okay? So you're going to file that protest. Just get it done. Get the paper in the mail or do it online. Don't worry about your evidence yet. What you now want to do is get out there and review the county's evidence. If you're in my neck of the woods, if you're in Tarrant County, it's very easy to create an account, log on, and I can immediately see the sales comps that they used. That's that market value. And I can see the other properties in my subdivision that they have valued on the tax rolls. They use those as what are called equity comps. So they're going to use both of those approaches, and my value is going to be somewhere in the middle. I can protest on one or the other or even both. Check both boxes, but get that evidence so you can see, well, what is their basis? What exactly, how did they get to that number? Their evidence will tell you that. Now you can start to break that down. Well, my house, I rehabbed it, 4 years ago. It's got the Formica counters. It is a rental. It's not been as well kept, and it was not made ready for sale like those three comps that you used right there. And if they are sold comps, get out there, see if you can find the pictures. Does your house really look like that? Well, you've got an argument now. You used bad market comps. Now, I'll tell you, the truth of the matter is we just heard that across the nation, we're up 15%. In some markets, it's even stronger in terms of sales prices. So building your argument around market value will be very, very difficult this year. You have a better chance if you focus on those equity comps, which is looking at the tax rolls to see how others were valued relative to your property. And on top of that, then, you're going to build your arguments, get your evidence together. Again, this might be sales comps. This might be those equity comps, those other properties listed on the tax rolls. You're going to get all of that together and then get a little bit more. Get some pictures and get some bids from your contractors. What do I need to do to really bring that property up to that market value? And you're going to argue now on condition. We're going to forget about those sales comps. That's going to be a tough one. Equity comps might work, but condition. This is really where you're going to stand a chance. If you look at your county appraisal district, they may call it desirability, they may call it condition, they may show you that you're at a very good condition. Well, maybe you need to get that lowered to good or average or fair or whatever the next level down may be. get all of that together. Now, here's the process. You filed. Don't worry about that evidence yet. Just filed that I want to have a protest. They'll schedule you for what's called an appraisal review board hearing. It can't be less than 2 weeks from the date that you file your protest. So you got a couple weeks. You're going to get your evidence together. You're going to review their evidence. And then you're going to go in there, whether it's in person. You're going to have to see what your appraisal district is doing now as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Some are getting back together in person. Some require you to do this over the phone. Go down, do it on the phone, do that informal hearing. Talk with that appraiser off the books. Say, hey, here's what I think. Have a conversation and make it a conversation. Have a win-win discussion. Don't go in punching, screaming, yelling. You're not going to get anywhere with that, but have a conversation with them. And I find that very, very often we're able to arrive at a reasonable solution during that informal hearing, that informal discussion with an appraiser. If that doesn't work out, then you go to the ARB. A lot of people hear appraisal review board. That's scary. Oh, gosh. The appraisal review board, those are volunteers from your community, often retirees, people that have the time to sit all day down there at the appraisal district and hear your case. And they also want to find a win-win solution. So go in pleasantly, have good evidence. Focus on that condition. Don't worry about those sales comps right now because that's going to be a tough argument to make. Look at the other houses in your neighborhood on the tax rolls. What do you see? How have they been valued? And focus on that as well as condition. That's what's going to get you to the finish line and get you that reduced value. You can do it. Nothing to lose. No penalties if you try. You may save yourself some taxes in the long run. Inflation, we see it. It's affecting housing affordability, and we see that on the property tax side of things as well. So like I said, get out and protest that. For the rest of you, have a great Mother's Day. Remember, it's not the money, it's the lifestyle. You have a good afternoon.
The Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.